So you've probably heard of a bloke called Roger Penske, right? He owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500 and, well, just basically the whole IndyCar series. He runs teams in IndyCar, NASCAR and the World Endurance Championship, and he even used to own a Formula One team. And you may have heard of an SCCA series called the Trans-Am. In fact, you probably have. And even if you haven't, you'll likely be familiar with some of the homologation specials that were created specifically to compete in the Trans-Am. These include the Ford Boss Mustang 302, the Dodge Challenger TA, the Plymouth Cuda AAR, and the ballsiest one of all, the Pontiac Firebird Trans-Am. But this video is all about the Chevrolet Camaro Z28 or Z28, depending on how you pronounce your Z's or Z's. But first, here is some useless information for you. As you know, I love useless information. Do you know why the Camaro Z28 was called the Z28? Well, it's actually not very exciting. Z28 was simply the Chevrolet regular production order code for it. So, for example, the Camaro Supersport package used the regular production order code Z27, and Z28 just happened to come after Z27. Now, Chevrolet didn't actually come up with a fancy marketing name for the Z28 when they first launched it because they didn't actually market it. They just sent out a bulletin to selected Chevrolet dealers who they thought might be interested in racing the new model in the Trans-Am. And it was only after that first season that Chevrolet started marketing the Z28. And by then, it was already too late to come up with a fancy marketing name, so they just stuck with Z28. Anyway, Penske Racing was the factory Chevy team in the Trans-Am series from 1967 through to the end of 1969. Now, the SCCA Trans-Am first began in 1966, and initially it was all pretty gentlemanly. It was mostly just a bunch of sports car racers running around in mildly modified Group 2 sedans. But then, in 1967, the manufacturers arrived and suddenly shit got serious. Ford won the 1967 Trans-Am Manufacturers Championship from Mercury and Chevrolet. But then Penske Racing and Mark Donohue wiped the floor with everyone in 1968. There was no Drivers' Championship, there was only a Manufacturers' Championship. And there were 13 races in the 1968 Trans-Am, and Chevy won 10 of them. And in fact, they had the Manufacturers' Championship sewn up with races to run. And obviously Ford got pretty pissed about that. And in the 1960s, when Ford got pissed, they spent money. So they created a new car specifically for the Trans-Am series, and it was called the Mustang Boss 302. And Ford got Carcraft to design and build the race cars. And these were then sent to the two Ford factory teams of Budmore Engineering and Shelby Racing Company. Now, Carcraft had previously been involved with Ford's Le Mans sports car program, and this included the GT40, the GT Mark II, and the GT Mark IV, and resulted in Le Mans wins in 1966 and 67. And Ford is reputed to have spent $3.8 million on the 1969 Trans-Am program. Now, to put that into perspective, the average American house price in 1969 was $27,000. So that's a whole lot of houses to build and run for Trans-Am Mustangs. And so Penske Racing really had their work cut out if they wanted to retain the Manufacturers' Championship for Chevrolet in 1969. What they needed was some unfair advantages. Okay, the truth is, the vinyl tops that were fitted to the Penske Racing Camaros in the early part of the 1969 Trans-Am did not provide any performance advantage. But everyone seemed to talk about them like they did. Fact is, the Camaro body shells spent too long in the acid bath and the roof tops went wrinkly, and so the vinyl was just put on to cover up the wrinkles. And in fact, the vinyl was actually a factory option on the Camaro. Now, acid dipping, of course, was a great way to save weight. You quite literally stick the body shell in a giant acid bath and the acid eats away at the metal and makes it lighter. You see, the minimum racing weight for the Trans-Am in 1969 was 2,900 pounds, but a stock Camaro Z28 weighed just under 3,300 pounds. Now, of course, All the factory teams were acid dipping their body shells, it wasn't just Penske. But acid dipping was illegal in the Trans-Am, although there was no real way to prove it. But obviously, a wrinkly top was a bit of a giveaway. Now the thing is, there was so much on the line, and Penske's rivals were so paranoid that they actually protested the vinyl tops. And that was because they didn't know what was underneath. And you know what? Penske Racing ran those vinyl tops in the first 5 races and only took 1 victory. And then when they removed the vinyl tops, they won all the remaining Trans-Am races in 1969. And so while the vinyl tops didn't actually offer a performance advantage, they got Penske's rivals so worked up, they ended up creating a psychological advantage. And sometimes in racing, that's just as important. Now, Penske Racing's driver and engineer Mark Donohue was a big part of the team's success, and he came up with some really clever tricks. One of these was a series of holes that exited out the engine bay, ran through the doors, and into the rear fender wells. The idea here was to release trapped air that was inside the engine bay because this created lift at high speeds. And the holes also reduced engine bay heat and helped cool the rear brakes. Now, the rules didn't specifically say that this couldn't be done, and the factory teams, of course, all worked on the principle that everything was legal unless the rules said otherwise. As we all know, it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. But regardless of what the rules said, the SCCA made Penske Racing cover up the holes after the 4th race. Now, 1969 Trans-Am races were pretty long, usually around 4 hours or so, and the cars were all limited to a maximum fuel tank size of 22 gallons. So they needed to make at least a couple of fuel stops per race. Now, oftentimes the cars could do the full race distance on 1 set of tyres, or at worst, swap tyres just once. So the time it took to refuel was the limiting factor during pit stops. And obviously you want to refuel as fast as possible. So Penske Racing engineer Don Cox came up with a brilliant system for speeding up refueling. And this was to construct a massive 20-foot fuel tower that used gravity to refill the cars faster. Now, the SCCA hated the fuel tower, but there were no actual rules that said how tall a tower could be. So the SCCA simply wrote a new rule. In between the 2nd and 3rd races, they declared that fuel towers could be no more than 12 feet tall. And so, not to be defeated, Don Cox came up with a new design. This featured slide valves at the nozzle and at the supply tank. And even with a 12-foot tower, the fuel supply was immense. It took 2 guys to operate, but they could refuel a car in about 3.5 seconds. And it made a real mess, but it worked a treat. But wait, Cox wasn't done yet. He came up with another idea to wrap the fuel drum inside another drum that was packed with dry ice. The dry ice reduced the fuel volume, and so the team could actually get 23 gallons into a 22-gallon tank. And this gave them about an extra lap per tank. And the SCCA never did cotton on to that one. Now, one trick the factory teams were doing in 1969 was to droop the noses so the cars could cut through the air just a little bit better at high speeds, and to get the front spoiler just a little bit closer to the ground. Now, the Ford and Chevy teams were the most blatant. Penske Racing lopped about an inch out of the radiator support panel on their Camaros. They then had to trim the bottom rear section of the front fenders so they didn't overlap the doors. So it was all pretty clever. The SCCA knew that they'd modified the bodywork, but they couldn't figure out how they'd done it. And of course, modifying the bodywork in the Trans-Am was illegal. Walt Hayne was an SCCA tech inspector, and he confronted Bud Moore about it. And Moore said to Hayne, "Tell me what I did," but he couldn't. Hayne visited car dealerships and took a bunch of measurements of stock engine bays of the various cars that were competing in the Trans-Am. And in the end, the SCCA arranged a fleet of stock pony cars. And they took these stock street cars to every race in 1969 to measure and compare them to the race cars. Ultimately, the SCCA kind of figured out what was going on, and they made the factory teams add some of the height back to their noses. But you know what? Most of that stuff was just white noise. Penske Racing went on to win 8 of the 12 races in the 1969 Trans-Am, and they did that because they built a strong car that was also hellishly fast. Their pit stops were really slick, and the team was really slick. And Mark Donohue was an amazing driver who was involved in designing and building the cars. And he did all the testing, so he knew them intimately. The other teams all had pay drivers who flew in for each race with their helmet and race suit, and they weren't integral to the team like Mark Donohue was to Penske. Penske Racing really had no weak links in the 1969 Trans-Am. They just ticked all the boxes, and that was the real reason that they were champions. Now, Mark Donohue wrote a book called The Unfair Advantage, but for the most part the only real advantage that Penske Racing had was Penske Racing. So, what happened to the cars? Penske Racing built 2 new Camaros for the 1969 Trans-Am, and they were driven by Mark Donohue and Ronnie Bucknam. Although when Bucknam was sidelined with a broken thumb, his car was driven by Ed Leslie. At the end of the season, Roger Penske did a deal with American Motors Corp to run the factory Javelins, and so the Camaros were sold. One of them went to Mexico and it was raced there for years, but it was apparently crushed during an earthquake. The other one went to Roy Woods, who raced it in 1970 before buying the 2 Penske Racing Javelins, and he went on to run the factory Javelin operation in 1972. And that car is now owned by Bill Ockerland and runs with the historic Trans-Am Group. And it's been restored back to its 1969 Penske Racing guise, and of course, it sports a vinyl top. Anyway guys, that's all I got for you this time around. Hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, please hit the like button and the subscribe button and tap that little bell thingy down below so you get a notification when I post up a new vid. Anyway, till next time, catch you then. Cheers, bye bye.